Hey, what's up everyone? Josh here with the Entrepreneur's Playbook, where we help 7- and 8-figure businesses ignite their financial superpowers. Here as always with Ron Parisi. Ron, how you doing this week?
Wonderful, Josh, as always, man.
Awesome.
We got we have an incredible guest and another good session for everybody.
Yeah, so we have a guest today. We have Andrew Hawkins. We're sitting here trying to debate what the title should be for Andrew, because tax manager doesn't quite capture, I don't think, what he does. Tax strategist, that's great. He does some tax strategy, but I don't know, Andrew, what do you think? Like king of tax? Or
yeah, if you give me that
here?
much of an array to choose from, I'm definitely going to make it pretty egotistical. But no, I think tax strategy, tax planner, tax manager, all the above. We just want to make sure our clients are covered, and whatever that takes, we'll make sure it happens.
Awesome. Yeah, bottom line is Andrew is the go-to person for tax at CPA on Fire. He's talking with all the top-level clients and coming up with all these strategies that we talk about every week. So we thought it'd be good to get Andrew on here and just go over everything tax-related at CPA on Fire and what we're seeing in the industry. Cool. So yeah, Ron, what do you think? What's the best way to get Andrew kicked off here?
I think, first of all, Andrew was relatively new to CPA on Fire within the last year, but he's been tasked with a big job, right? So we've committed to being a cutting-edge firm from a tax perspective. I think looking at the geography, forward-looking, there's going to be some significant tax changes coming down the pipe with a whole host of different economic situations going on in our country. And we committed to being a true leader from a tax strategy, tax planning perspective. And then I think the big thing I'd like to talk today is, like, we talked in the past about long-term planning for business owners and entrepreneurs. And I think we just jump in. Let's talk about, what does long-term tax strategy mean, and how does it help the business owner? How does it help the entrepreneur really get head on their skis? So let's talk, Andrew, over to you. Like, when you first meet a client, what are we talking about? What are we considering? What are some points that you're bringing up with the business owner, and how to create that?
Yeah, the typical client that we're meeting with, they've really been focused on just building the foundation of the business so far. They've picked up some traction, really starting to accelerate the growth. And up until that point, you're so hyper-focused on just the operations, the market that you're addressing, and the compliance side is a little bit, it's not prioritized the way that is demanded once you get to a certain size. And so what we really aim to do is figure out the current standpoint of the client through extensive conversation, figure out what's bogging you down, what's keeping you from reaching that next level stage of growth from a compliance or regulation standpoint. And that's where we immediately address those pain points. We make sure that they're covered from a compliance standpoint. They're not having to focus on everything that could bog down that growth, that could really help you reach that hyperdrive mode when it comes to growth. And we've got multiple different touch points with clients where we'll see what pain points we need to address, and then we'll build a custom tailored tax plan to the growth objectives that they have, whether that's near term or also long-term planning. And so we'll put together a custom plan for them, make sure we're addressing those items, address opportunities that we can capitalize on, and just make sure that we're helping implement those at each stage of the business. So we've got that initial tailored tax plan that we'll put together, those initial opportunities that we can jump onto, and then we've got multiple touch points on a quarterly basis, a year-end basis that we'll continue to check in, see how the business is aligning with those initial projections, and if we need to change or update that plan in any way, just to make sure they're still on track. So it's a continually evolving set of conversations that need to be had. And I'm sure, as every business owner knows, if you could perfectly project or predict the future, it'd be a really easy job. And that's just not the case. So having a CPA, having a tax professional that you can work with and stay in constant communication with in order to alter and update those plans just to perfectly align with your vision, that's the key. That's the value that we bring here at CPA on Fire. And that's the relationship that we're aiming to build with each of the clients.
I was going to say, I'll just jump in there. I just love the fact that, you started with, it's probably the least talked about, but the compliance piece, because I just feel like how many people come into our office and there's always something that's missing. And it's just like that building block is that before we can run, we have to have the foundation, and just like making sure the foundation, all that pieces are covered, and then building off of that. So once we make sure that we're in compliance, that we have everything tied down, What does that look like as far as you said, we don't exactly know what the future holds, but how do you work with your clients to make sure that there's no surprises, that we are taking advantage
Absolutely.
of all the opportunities?
Yeah, so as part of that custom tax plan that we'll put together for them, the overall goal is to make sure we're capitalizing on every opportunity available, but also as much as we can removing any surprises from the equation. So with those projections, we really like to put together about a 5-year plan of estimated growth, what income level the business is going to be at, so that we can time those opportunities to make sure that we're capitalizing at the right time, that we're maximizing those possible deductions or credits that are coming through to the business owner. And there is the typical relationship with your CPA is a rear view perspective of what has happened, what do we need to report at this point, things of that nature. And you can really corner yourself when it comes to tax reporting or tax planning when you've got a relationship like that. So we like to look at 3 to 5 years ahead of time to figure out, what tax brackets they're going to be in, what the worth of each deduction is going to be, and figure out when the best time is to capitalize on each of those opportunities. So we've got a major focus on long-term planning as opposed to just year to year, although there is a perfect marriage that needs to be adhered to when we're addressing short-term pain points, making sure that foundation is there, like you mentioned, and then setting ourselves up for the success to address 3 to 5 to even 10 years down the line if we're looking at exit opportunities, different strategies that we can take to minimize capital gains, as well as those immediate near-term deductions that we want to maximize as well. You got to take a holistic approach when you come to it, and that's just done through consistent communication, projections, and really marrying that internal accounting with the tax planning, the tax strategy, and making sure those are aligned with the overall vision.
Awesome.
Yeah, I hear it all the time. I'm sure you guys hear it all the time. We get people that constantly come in and hey, my tax professional's really bad. They're not doing enough. And I want to touch on how do you know if your tax professional is actually not good enough and you need to move, or it's just you owe taxes because you're a successful business, right? Because if you're a successful business, you're going to pay taxes unless you find somebody that's comfortable putting you and them in jail, right? That's part of the plan. You pay taxes. But there's also an element to it of you should expect those taxes. If you're getting hit with unexpected 6-figure tax bills that they gave you no warning were coming, then that's a warning sign, right? If you're getting these failure to pay penalties and late fees and all these compliance issues that Ron touched on, that's a warning sign, right? So I guess you're seeing all these people come in from all these different tax professionals. Can you touch a little bit on what should be warning signs to you of, hey, maybe I need to look into something versus, hey, you just owe a lot of taxes?
A couple of different warning signs that you might need to consider bringing on a different CPA, a different tax professional. I would think if you're getting big bills come April, if that's a really big surprise to you, we're talking 5-6 figures that are coming down the pipeline and it's a really big surprise to you, no forewarning, I would say that's an issue right there. Tax planning can address that. From the first conversation, you can know how to spread out those payments, how to adhere to the estimated tax payment guidelines, and you really shouldn't be left with a big surprise come April 15th. So I would think that's the first sign there. The second sign, any consistent notices that you're receiving if you're constantly out of compliance with the IRS. There's a lot of checks and balances that a good tax professional will adhere to just to make sure you're constantly in compliance, that you're able to have a good night's sleep, knowing that there's not a lot of back and forth with the IRS, you're not on any sort of radar. So I would always make sure that there's not a overly large burden of notices or communication needing to happen with the IRS, just that you're in good standing, I think. So getting a good night's sleep is key, being able to rest easy with your position with the IRS. And then lastly, I would say constant communication, feedback, really understanding what sources your tax bill. I would think what drives the increase in tax from year over year, really understanding what's going on from a tax reporting standpoint is going to be key. So if your CPA isn't breaking down what's going on your income tax return, if you don't understand the first thing of what you're seeing on your return, that's going to be an issue as well, because it's got to be a two-sided conversation and a marriage that's going on as you're operating throughout the year to understand what's driving those increases in tax and what you can do to minimize it, because at the end of the day, it's the business owner who's going to, drive the fluctuation in the tax bill. And so being able to understand what affects that is going to be key. And so when your return is delivered, just make sure you have that time to set aside and talk with your advisor, talk with your CPA to make sure you understand what's driving those figures. I'd say big surprises come April, any consistent IRS notices, and then lastly, making sure you understand what's driving your tax bill. Those are going to be three key factors to assess whether you need to look into a more experienced tax professional. And those are the three things that we aim to address here at CPA on Fire. Those are really non-negotiables when it comes to engaging with a good tax advisor.
Yeah, no, that definitely
cool.
all makes sense.